October 28, 2017 BN Staff October 28, 2017 BN Staff The heavyweight fights that got away. The heavyweight fights that got away. Don't miss any action. Sign up for the free BN newsletters here. Rocky Marciano v Nino Valdez. A 6 feet 3 inches, 15 stone Cuban with an 80-inch reach, exploded onto the heavyweight scene when he outpointed the in-form former champion Ezard Charles in Miami in 1953. Yet when Marciano looked for a defense in June 1954, he ignored Valdez, who had continued to win, and selected instead Charles, who in that time had also lost to Bob Satterfield. When Charles ran Marciano close, he was given a rematch in September 1954. Mike Tyson v. George Foreman. Foreman's comeback began in the late 1980s, when Tyson was the young, supposedly invincible world heavyweight champ. Foreman talked himself up as a challenger, but not many believed he was serious. Gradually, however, as Foreman's comeback gathered momentum and Tyson's flaws were exposed, it became one of those fascinating what-if fights. Foreman lost to Evander Holyfield, but by the time he beat Michael Moorer for the title, Tyson was in jail. John L. Sullivan v. Peter Jackson. Sullivan famously drew the color bar rather than faced the now legendary Peter Jackson, even in so much as a brief exhibition with sparring gloves. San Francisco promoters even linked together to offer Sullivan $10,000 to defend against Jackson, but were told, "I have never fought a Negro and never shall." Jackson boxed 61 rounds to a standstill with James J. Corbett before Corbett dethroned Sullivan. Corbett called him the greatest fighter one have ever seen. Joe Louis v. Elmer Ray from 1943. When Ray lost in one round to Albert Turkey Thompson, until 1948, Elmer Violent Ray was beaten only on a majority decision by Jersey Joe Walcott against 57 wins, including a decision over Walcott, and a knockout of Lee Savold. He deserved a chance at the title, but was black, and until Lewis boxed Walcott in December 1947, he fought only one black challenger, his friend John Henry Lewis, the light heavyweight champion, in 1939. Henry Cooper v. Jimmy Ellis. The British Boxing Board of Control denied Henry Cooper the right to box World Boxing Association champion Jimmy Ellis in September 1969 because they were not affiliated to the governing body and refused to recognize them. Cooper gave up the British title in protests, and considered boxing Ellis in Rome or Dublin. The fight was arranged in spite of the board's stance for Wembley Stadium and tickets printed, but was cancelled when Henry needed knee surgery. Jack Dempsey v. Harry Greb. Dempsey was happy to box light heavyweight champion George Carpentier in the first of the $1 Million Gates, but even though he would have outweighed middleweight champion Greb by 20 pounds or more. According to legend, Greb, the only man to beat Dempsey's eventual conqueror, Gene Tunney, gave him fits in a sparring session, and Jack never forgot it. Jack Dempsey v. Harry Wills. Aside from a disqualification against Bill Tate, Wills was unbeaten in a run of more than 50 fights between 1917 and 1926. The general feeling was that he was a natural challenger for Dempsey's world championship. However, Wills was black, and Dempsey's promoter, Tex Rickard, had staged the infamous Jack Johnson-James J. Jeffries fight in Reno in 1910, after which there were race riots around the country. Johnson had also become a scandalous figure who had more or less banished the championship to the social fringes. Rickard had no interest in repeating the exercise, and, in spite of some pressure from the New York Commission, the fight was never made. Jack Johnson v. Sam Langford. Johnson did beat Langford on a 15-round decision in Boston in 1906, but once he became heavyweight champion saw no point in a return. Langford was way better than men who had their opportunity, like fireman Jim Flann, battling Jim Johnson and Frank Moran, but he was ignored. Roy Jones v. Lennox Lewis. When Jones outboxed John Ruiz for the WBA heavyweight title in March 2003, there was brief talk of his going on to a unification fight with Lennox Lewis, who was acknowledged as the genuine champion. Neither Jones nor Lewis showed much inclination for it, however, and the idea was rapidly dropped. James J. Braddock v. Max Schmeling. Braddock's manager Joe Gould agreed a deal with Schmeling for a championship defense in September 1936, the year after the Cinderella Man had upset Max Baer and months after Schmeling's sensational knockout of Joe Louis. Braddock at first pulled out with a finger injury, then was diagnosed with rheumatic elbows, which postponed the fight until June 1937. Schmeling weighed in and passed his medical 10 hours before the fight, only for Braddock not to show. He had agreed instead to defend against Lewis in Chicago a few weeks later. Read more articles by BN Staff.